Today, we are joined by Bill Grant from a company called As Told By. He's based in Columbia, South Carolina, and me and Bill go way back. We've been in the video business for a long time, both of us. And Bill, it's been so long since I've talked to you. You started to pop up again, and we started to talk on LinkedIn, and here we are. So this is our time to catch up. Tell me, first off, how have you been?
Good, man. It's it's been an interesting journey. The business itself changes every couple of years, right? So, the industry itself changes, what people want change, and so, it's hard to get stale because you're constantly keeping up with where things are headed, and so.
What would you say would be your favorite aspects to building a business?
So there's a book called Good to Great, which I would recommend everybody read, Jim Collins. And Good to Great says that when you're thinking about building a company or scaling, what you're doing is you're getting the right people on the bus, and then you're figuring out what seat they're in, and then you figure out where the bus is going, not the other way around. And so, one of the most important things for me as I'm building a team, so we're up to seven now on our team. It's so important that I get the right people on the team. That's not the people with the right skills. That's the people with the right drive, with the right attitude, that they're trainable. Even if they're great at what they do, they're willing to learn more. All of that comes down to getting the right people on the bus, and not necessarily trying to hold people to a job description or whatever it is. I have several people who have been hired as video editors who turned out to be better at social media or at project management or whatever it is. And so we're helping guide them to where they're going to fit best. And a lot of that comes down to just understanding what motivates them, and which is their own success, their own kind of like being able to do the things that make them happy. And if we can make them happy, then that helps us to grow and to get to the places we want to go. So
what process are you using? Is it simply sitting down and saying, okay, everybody, what do you want to do? What are you good at? Or is there a method or a process to actually start to discover, if there's hidden talents with the people that you're working with, so you put them in a better seat?
Well, one of the things that happens to us is that I'll give them a project, and then I'll realize early in the project that they're not right for it. And so I'll give an editor an edit project, and I'll have in my mind how easy or hard I think it is or how long it should take. And if things are prolonged, if they delay, if they have some questions that are off kilter or whatever it is, I'll know that they're not necessarily suited for this kind of project. And so we'll start to dig to find those things. And that usually happens in the first couple of months. One of the things I love is when I hire somebody and they take to the job I give them, and that's really exciting for them to be able to do good work and to be able to kind of jump into the team and start contributing right away. But then sometimes what I find is once we'll have topics that come up and then they'll light up. I had one guy that we hired in May as a video editor, and we started talking about social media and design, motion graphics, stuff like that. And these are all things that he did in college a lot and loves doing. And I recognized when he lit up when those topics started happening. And so I started giving him feeding him little pieces. Hey, why don't you make this thing for us? Why don't you do this thing for us? And I realized once he started doing that's his sweet spot. And so we just picked up a fully animated project, which he's going to do for us. I mean, he's going to help us kind of put it all together. And it's scripted voiceover, but it's all going to be motion graphics and animation. And he's so excited to get to this. He doesn't know what to do with himself. So we're talking about it every day. I'm having to beat him off like with a stick, just like, Ryan, don't ask about that anymore, And so it's cool to see that and to see people kind of rev that motor up and get excited about what they're doing. And I think you can just recognize that about people. So when you bring them in and they're not excited about something that you give them, but then they seem very excited about something else, it's important, I think, for us to follow that path that they're leading us on, because they're going to do better work if they're happy. They're going to do better work if they're excited about what they're doing.
I have a I got this concept not from that book, but from a book called Traction.
Yeah.
And the idea behind where I pulled that from was, this idea of being interested and being capable.
Yeah.
There was actually three parts to it, but what I said to everybody on my team is we're gonna make a huge list of all of the major aspects of what we do. Whether it's something in production or it's something in marketing or something in sales, or it could go specific down marketing into website, into SEO, whatever it is. So we have this huge list of all these different things. Then I wrote a column with I for interested and C for capable. And then I had them basically check every single box. I'm interested in it. I'm good at it.
Right.
That's it. So the first thing I would do is I would see what then I would see what overlaid and said, okay, for each person, who has I's and C's together? Okay, I know they're interested and I know that they think they're good at it. That's a good starting place.
Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome.
And then I did the same thing for, each person, and then started to actually connect. Okay, you two have this IC on both ends. We can connect you together.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll do that with my team. I think that's interesting. I was talking to somebody this morning about that idea and the fact that what gets me motivated is not being good at something. And so if I'm not good at something, it drives me nuts. And so I research it and I practice. And I was telling this young lady that I was talking to, when I first started, I was trying to figure out lighting and interview audio, interviewing multiple people. So I got my two kids together, at that time, 10 years old and 4 years old, and tried to interview the two of them together. And, that's the kind of thing that I think drives me. And I think that's important to understand is you've got to cater all of this stuff to what drives you. Right. And it's really as much for me about trying to fill those gaps of what I'm not good at, than it is, the things you're good at, you just are good at and you just go do them. But I think it's important to fill in those gaps too. And so one of the things I try to do with our team is training, is making sure that we've got the right, video courses that they can watch for editing or Premiere education, or, everybody's going through drone certification again and all that stuff. And I think this is important to make sure to fill in those things about what you're not good at as well. But if you can lean into those things that people are excited about, even if they're excited because they're not good at it, then I think you're going to get the most out of people. And I think something interesting, another piece of that success puzzle is something I actually learned from one of your workshops, which I think is interesting. This is one of 2 times that you've changed the trajectory of my business completely in a very, very short period of time. So I went to the commercial storytelling workshop in 2015, I think it was 15. And I recognized 2 things about this. I recognized, number one, you had 2 guys, I think, at the workshop that knew the lighting, they knew the camera, they knew all of the little bits and pieces, and they were very obviously with you all the time, or very obviously very educated on what to do. And I recognized that, and I said, I'm hiring freelancers or whoever I can find to do the jobs or whatever it is, and I've got to get them up to speed every time. And I went home, and one of the first things I did was the freelancer I used the most, I offered him a job. I was like, I want you to do every job. I want you to come and work with me on every job. I want you to work on editing every job. And he and I kind of worked together and built the company up over the course of 5 years or 6 years. And that one change, in addition to the other change, which I figured out, is that I wasn't putting enough effort into the work that we were doing at the time. I had kind of reconciled the fact that we were already doing more work than people were expecting out of us. So I felt like people weren't expecting much. And so we were just giving them what they expected. And I figured my level of effort at the time was 65 to 70%, right? More than half I was giving it a good shot. But I said, you know what, if I can take that effort up to like 85%, I'm not going for 100 because that's impossible. But if I can take it up to 85%, that means I don't compromise on lighting. I don't compromise on audio, no matter how hard it is to drag the C-stand with me and set up everything. I'm going to do it. And that change from going at 65% to going at 85%, we doubled revenue twice between 2015 and 2019. So we went from about, from where we were in 2015, doubled and then doubled again, just from putting in more effort. And I think, it makes a big difference when you think about that.
Can you hear my kids
I can
singing
hear
in the
something.
background?
Yeah. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, so there's a piano downstairs. They probably have friends over, and they're screaming loud because I got headphones on and I can hear them clearly. And it's not coming through the mic in my headphones, so I can imagine. Let me see if I can tell them to bring it down a little bit, and then I'm going to be right back. All right, we'll see how that works out. Yeah, so I went downstairs, and there's two friends. My 14-year-old has two friends over. They have the piano, which is there already, and they have two guitar amps and two guitars. I didn't know that there was going to be a band downstairs during this podcast, but anyway, we compromised. So they're going to go play Mario Kart, and I told them, give me a little bit of time. Anyway, so really interesting concept. You upped from 65 to 85%, right? And there's a philosophy from Grant Cardone where one of his books is called 10X, but his philosophy is, put 10 times the amount of effort into something that you think you really need to. And, a lot of times, what's your goal? I want to make $1 million. Okay. Now you want to make $10 million. Go for 10 million, because if you don't make it to 10 million and you make it to 3 million, that's not bad, because you're trying for 1 million originally and you just tripled it. You 3X'd it because you went into it with a 10X mindset. So same concept though, that you have to put more effort in. And when you did that, like you said, your business changed, you said twice over the course of 4 years.
Again.
And then twice again.
I think it's something that I would have told you 4 years before that couldn't happen. I would have said, there's no way to do that here, right? That's what I would have said, because I'm in a small market. I would have said there's no way to do it. And I would say that, but I also wasn't putting in the effort. And so I think what comes down to is, as wedding videographers, and I'm sure you have a similar experience that I do, is that almost every time they're blown away by what we do, right? Even if we fall a little short of what our standards for ourselves are, the brides and families and everybody that's involved in it are blown away, because I think of their expectations are, they don't know what to expect because they've never done this before, right? When you're working with a commercial client, it's a little different, because a lot of times they've done marketing, they've done TV, they've done other stuff. And so I think the margins are a lot smaller to be able to make people deliriously happy. And that's what that's really the goal, right? Is not to satisfy your contractual obligation, is you want to make people deliriously happy. And so I think that's where the money is. And so putting in that extra effort, putting in the extra time, making sure that you go overboard to make sure everything works. It's a huge difference. And what ends up happening with us is that, I think one of the keys to success 100% is going above what you're obligated to do, what you're contracted to do. Don't let people take advantage of you. But at the same time, when you're in a good situation, give as much as you can give, and that made all the difference. But what's funny is I went to that workshop on a Thursday and did the workshop for 2 days and came home on Monday and changed everything. I came home and said, okay, we're doing these differently now. And it everything took a spike straight up from that point on.
You applied, which is what 90% of the people in that room did not do, not only the day after, but a year after or 5 years after. And that is the notorious aspect of going to a conference or a workshop or a seminar, going there with the intent of learning. But the hardest part is always the execution. Anybody can come up with a great idea. Anybody can share a great way to do something. But without that execution, which most of us don't do,
well, and the Grant Cardone quote is great because honestly, if I had, maybe I didn't execute it exactly right, and I probably didn't execute it the way you told us to necessarily, I just saw something in there and said, oh, now I understand. And I went home and did something, right? And Ryan has a great saying. He says, go ugly early.
He said that on the podcast. I love that.
And I think, most of us are so afraid to go ugly, to build out loud,
We're going ugly here. We're painting the ship while it sails. The second podcast. I already have problems with my audio and my camera that I'm tweaking each time. And it's what we do. It's podcast 15 will be there. It's all good. I got to mess up the first 15 before, I'm going ugly. And I'm starting to work out now. So I gained a lot of weight and I'm getting pissed at myself. So I could wait till I lose weight, which might not ever happen. Or I could just start doing podcasts now and say, F it. Let's just go ugly.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting to that age where I'm going to have to start working out or I'm going to start to fall apart. Right. And it's going to be much more about the way I feel than what I look like.
Get out.
So
let me ask you a question. We started pushing social recently. And of course we do what we do, but there's a similarity to what we're doing. Like I see education you're putting out. I'm putting out education and tell me about this. What's your thoughts on the concept of a marketing campaign through social and also the approach of giving versus
and I think it's interesting that advertising, especially around here, has always been television, radio. Those things have always been untrackable, and so what's interesting is that you can track. When you go on to LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, Facebook or whatever, and you talk about one thing or you talk about, or you give, right? So when we go in and talk about, hey, here's how you use videos to do whatever, or you go on and say, philosophically, this is where we all are and this is a universal truth. You see who responds to one versus who responds to the other, and you can just cater those things. So since I've had this guy working for us that is our social media guy, we've been testing a bunch of stuff. And so one of the things we're testing is goofy sketches that are trending or whatever, and those go gangbusters. We had one that was 62,000 views on Instagram Reels. It's like, it doesn't make any sense that 62,000 people watched it.
Wow. What was the gimmick?
Stephanie, who's our office administrator, part of her job is uploading footage. And so it was a shot of her laying on the floor after uploading footage all day. And it was goofy. And it's not a universal message, but it got a lot of views. And so, but understanding those things like what do trends get you? Right? They get you a lot of views, but are views what you want? And so you decide if views are what you want. So, it's all about KPIs and understanding when you go into it, what are your KPIs? For me, I found that LinkedIn was a place that I could get the local business owners who are the ones that I'm trying to reach to respond to questions, to respond to education, to respond to, those things about like when I'm learning about brain chemistry. It's one of the things I've been fascinated with. Tom Bilyeu does a podcast called Impact Theory. And on that podcast, he talks about brain chemistry all the time and how those things like anxiety is a manifestation of your brain releasing a certain chemical to make your body super aware that there's trouble so that your body can fight the trouble, right? And so it's not like it's not as much a psychological thing as it is a brain chemistry thing. So I love that kind of stuff, and I think that's super universal. So when I talk to business owners about anxiety, and we talk about the idea that anxiety is not a condition you have, it's sometimes a response to things going on, but it's anyway, that kind of stuff got a bigger response. So I'm diving into that. So like the videos that I've been posting lately, we sat down in my studio 2 weeks ago and recorded 10 videos, just one right after another with little bits. I found that 15 to 30 seconds is the sweet spot, up to 45 seconds. But like, if I can get what you're talking about, who you're talking to is important. And so the audience is important. And then your KPIs are important. What is, maybe you're looking for views. Maybe that's what you want. So if you want to become an influencer, or you want to become somebody who gets to speak because of their knowledge in whatever field, then views are important. If you're trying to land clients, you need to be on the phone. You need to be having lunch. You need to be going to networking meetings. Social is just support for that. So like you think about social as something that is sort of ancillary to face-to-face. Face-to-face needs to be what you're doing if you're trying to sell stuff. And so, that's kind of the way we look at it. We want to divide it up based on your KPIs. Sometimes what you want is exposure for your whatever it is, and you just have to understand whether or not you're getting views locally. Are you getting views? Is somebody in Peoria watching your video? And it doesn't matter because you sell heating and air conditioning, so Peoria is not relevant at all. And so it's just a matter of understanding kind of what's important. So for us, what I want more visibility with local business owners. Our business naturally gravitated towards nonprofits, as did yours, I think, too, right? You're the first one I saw do something for Make-A-Wish.
Yeah, we have it's a smaller piece of the pie compared to corporate, but yeah, we've always had a certain amount of nonprofit that we've worked with. Yeah.
And the national nonprofits have good budgets for marketing. So we gravitated towards them. We're moving that a little bit towards companies because we feel like companies have a little bit more direct control over their marketing spend and don't have everything's not quite so rigidly budgeted and all that kind of stuff. So that's my target. I'm trying to reach local business owners. If I can post regularly and they see me posting regularly, then they're more likely to respond to those things. And them responding to my post is exactly what I'm looking for social media wise. I want to make sure that that if I'm putting myself out there, that's why. Now on Instagram, we're still doing reels. We're still doing the goofy sketches. We're still doing those things to see if we can generate activity around that kind of stuff. Because if a client needs that, we want to be able to understand if I need to get you 100,000 views of something, how do we do that? And that's in finding the trends. That's in understanding how to apply messaging to a trend, all that kind of stuff. But that's Instagram. And Instagram is a little bit different story than something like LinkedIn. And for a B2B business like us, then LinkedIn is the top of our funnel social wise.